Our just cutting our little intro here that we always do, and Paul Wagner, Eric Tasker, flipping sticks and throwing lead podcast. Another episode in the Tasker's Tavern. You know what that means? We got an interview.
We got an interview.
We got a guest.
Up. We got a guest.
Yeah.
We got a guest.
Which is good. So we, again, I think as we're going to probably do for most of these, is that we will actually pre-record the interview, and then we'll come back. We'll do our intros and all that stuff just to save our guests a little bit of time. But wanted to just jump on here quick. Alec Bekkers, who is the chair of the Wisconsin Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I'm a hard T guy and hunters and anglers. I don't know. People give me a hard time about that, but for some reason I always have to pronounce that. But a really, really good conversation. There's a lot going on in the state of Wisconsin, whether that's with sandhill cranes and some of the legislation that's happening with that right now. The wolf, the whole debacle with the wolf hunt that happened a couple years ago that you had some experience with. Yep. And then the majority of our conversation talks about the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program and kind of what's going to happen with some funding with that, bringing it back into play. And it was a marathon, hour and 40 minutes almost, I think. We could have gone for hours.
It just gets so interesting listening to people that say they don't know much, or one time in the interview, he goes, I'm just a dumb guy, a dumb hunter, whatever. But he is so wicked smart on so many different topics. He accessed a couple of numbers. We've got some data on certain things. I just think it was just he's very, very knowledgeable of what's going on, maybe in the country, but definitely in the state of Wisconsin. Yeah. Everything from hot topics to how the government is dealing with it, how we're going to try to garner some funding, whether it be even propose as a tax that was slid into one of the governing bodies. There's just so many things here that, again, what a great interview, great person. And we hope to get him on again, because when we get him back, we're definitely going to have some more hot topics, and he'll be right on top of it. He's right on point. He's right on point.
Yeah, and we didn't even get into like waterways and just like some of those other topics that, we have griped and complained about a lot of these things for so long. It was good to have somebody who's actually involved with kind of what's actually happening with them, whether that's with legislation or what's going on behind the scenes. But it was really good just to have him on and get some of that insight. And especially right now, I know he's jumped on a few different shows just purely for the fact that this Knowles-Nelson thing is a pretty big deal in the state of Wisconsin with some of the funding that's happening with that. So it's a great conversation, but we always like to save our guests a little bit of time, plug our sponsors in advance of doing the actual show. And again, so Charisma Customs, it's kind of that time of year. People are starting to get details done, and they're worried about how filthy their car is. Right. But they have so much to offer right there in Delafield. But charismacustoms.com, a really great partner of ours that will take care of any of your auto aftermarket, boating aftermarket, and if you've got ATVs, UTVs, if you want to protect those, or maybe you just want to throw a stereo in them. Whatever it might be, they're your place. Tell them that we sent you. We will certainly appreciate that. What do you know about Central Standard there, Mr. Paul Wagner?
Well, we don't have any questions about their product. Again, I know they got so much going on over there. They're expanding. They're spreading their wings a lot. But we will definitely get them in the fold at some sort, and hopefully we can relay that to you in either a discount, a product. We'll figure something out.
We'll do something with those guys.
We'll do something with them guys. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, so Central Standard, a local Milwaukee distillery that does a lot of different things, which I'm sure we will dive more into. And then lastly, we just want to give a big shout out to HHA USA. So in April, they actually have their first event coming up. I believe it's the 16th and 17th of April. So it's right after tax day. I'm going to be heading out to Vortex for the weekend. out in Barneveld and doing a couple different things with those guys. But HHAUSA.org, everything that they do, they give back to the community for veterans and first responders and help them with PTSD and trauma. But Chris Ham, thank you for being a part of this. And yeah, just a lot to come on that topic, just in terms of a couple different things that we're going to be doing specifically with them. And but if you have an interest in being a part of that, or if you are a first responder or a veteran in any capacity, make sure to check out their website, reach out to us for details. Yeah, I think I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on first before we launch into this, but it's a good one. It's a long one, but it's a good one.
We better jump into it pretty quick because it does take some time. And again, like we always say, if you can't listen to the whole thing, just speed through there. Just come back to it. Come back to it and pick up the conversation, because the hot topics of Wisconsin are addressed.
All right. Well, without further ado, here's our guest, Alec Bekkers of Wisconsin BHA.
In Wisconsin, the stories start before sunrise. They start in a deer stand, in a duck blind, on the front deck of a bass boat. Welcome to the Flippin' Sticks and Throwin' Lead podcast. With your hosts, Eric Tasker and former Major League pitcher Paul Wagner, this is everything outdoors. Hunting, fishing, conservation. The wins, the misses, and the memories that stick with you for a lifetime. Out here, you earn your stories, and we're here to tell them.
All right, here we go. One of the things with this podcast is that I just never really know which way is the right way to have this kind of set up here, because then we can't see us, and I don't know. It's just, my wife thinks that I'm IT, but because I set up her monitor so she could work from home, I'm the farthest thing from it. But
we don't need to see us.
Right? That is fair.
I don't need to see
so
me.
Let's just see what happens here. So Alec Bekkers from the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. It's just so funny. We kind of teed this up earlier that it's like I wasn't even sure what his actual title was. I just know that that's how I've met him, through like some of the Okayest Hunter things. And I'm like, I don't know, man, but if I had questions about it, he's the guy that I would ask. And since there is so many different things happening in the state right now, we're going to jump into a couple of those different topics. So Alec, thanks for jumping on with us. Here we are, man. I feel like this was something that we never actually talked about, but always in the back of my mind, I was like, we got to have him on at some point. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a nice break from my day job. So I always enjoy talking about this.
I think it also kind of threw Wags for a loop, because, I send it to your work email and he's like, who the hell is this guy?
Well, no, I was just trying to find some information. This was Tasker's thing, and usually we send little questions and stuff like that as we prepared you for. We kind of just throw some stuff at the wall, and then if it takes us off the rails, it takes us off the rails. But I was just trying to find some information about you, who you work with, everything like that. And I kept throwing me to the national. Next thing you know, I'm up in Alaska, and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't need to Wisconsin. I want to go back to Wisconsin. He sent me over the lead for you, and then it was beautiful. Then all of a sudden I got all Wisconsin topics, knolls, cranes, and stuff that you'll go over, I'm sure, and waterways and stuff like that. So again, thank you very, very much for coming on. Greatly appreciated it. And it's all questions that we're always going to have.
So Alec, give us the rundown. Who's Alec Bekkers, and what is his role with the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers?
So I'm just a regular guy at the end of the day. I got a day job to pay the bills. And outside of that, when I'm not, doing my own hunting and fishing, pursuing outdoor activities, I volunteer a little bit of my time with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. So Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, or BHA, is a national level 501c3 nonprofit organization that is focused on public lands, public waters, and public wildlife. Advocacy for all things that revolve around public lands and waters and wildlife therein. We are organized by chapters, so generally by state. We have a statewide chapter here in Wisconsin, of which I am the chairperson for Wisconsin. So I'm just one of probably 30,000 members across the country, and BHA is very much a grassroots and volunteer-led organization. I think we only have, maybe 15 employees nationally that are actually paid by BHA. The most notable employee, I should say, is our new CEO, Ryan Callahan from Meat Eater. So very, very excited to have him steering the ship. But the rest of us, we're just volunteering our time.
Yeah. So part of the requirements to be a volunteer for BHA must be then that everybody has to have a mustache.
I have not been able to get that implemented as a regulation yet, but I'm hopeful that we can get that passed.
Yeah.
So we're not playing for the New York Yankees where facial hair is not allowed.
Completely the opposite. It's encouraged for anyone that can grow it. This is the extent of my facial hair production. So that's what I got to go with.
That's all right, though. That's all right. I kind of have the opposite where, like, I have this blonde mustache and it just, there's something there. It just doesn't look like there's anything there. So that's what I have to do.
And then I have nothing on top. So I can grow a couple gray straggles here, but nothing on top.
So how you are not originally from Wisconsin, is that correct? But you went to school here and kind of ended up here, or you are an OG Wisconsinite?
You are correct. I am not from Wisconsin originally. Okay. I kind of grew up all over the place, but I ended up in Milwaukee going to Marquette University and been here ever since. Wisconsin's now by far the place that I've lived the longest in my life. So I like to think that I'm from Wisconsin now. And I got bit by the Wisconsin bug, and now, I didn't grow up hunting and fishing either. So it's been a wild ride, especially in my post-college years.
It's hard not to get into one of the two, hunting or fishing, when you live in Wisconsin, because we just have so many. I mean, I just think about people in my subdivision, where we are here in Oconomowoc. I mean, it's hard to not have like an affinity for wildlife. I mean, it's like we're in a waterway because we've got a river and we've got thousands of geese that are everywhere and ducks all over. We have deer constantly in our yard. Not far away in the ag fields close by us, there's constantly turkeys. I mean, if nothing else, just to kind of marvel at the wonder of what we're surrounded by. But it makes it really easy then to be able to jump into, I'm going to just buy a fishing pole. I'm going to just buy a license. I'm going to do all of those things and just see what it's all about. And suddenly a lot of people will just get bit by that bug in the 3 months that we have summer here, that we're able to sit on a creek bank or a river bank or get on a boat or do something like that. So it makes it hard not to get involved with that stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I think my first exposure to that aspect of Wisconsin culture was starting out at my job. I was working in a manufacturing environment, and the master scheduler was telling me, yeah, we block off the entire week of Thanksgiving and we don't assume we're going to have any production because we know everybody's going to be calling out and not showing up for work. I'm like, oh, for Thanksgiving? He's like, no, gun season.
Well, I think you found yourself at a pretty decent spot then, if that's like the unwritten rule or they plan their production around that.
Yeah,
that's great.
That was a great exposure.
Yeah. So then how did your roads lead to being a part of BHA, and then kind of like your, not career path, but like your journey with them? How did that all kind of unfold, or what led you to that?
So I think from a hunting side of things, I took a couple learn to hunt classes with the DNR. And that's really how I got my start in like actually going out by myself, deer hunting, anything, honestly. I really thank the DNR's programs for giving me the skills and the confidence to go out and hunt on my own. So I really enjoyed that. And like a lot of people that are either not from Wisconsin originally or did not grow up hunting and fishing, I didn't have any other options other than public lands for my recreation. Right. And then diving into the world of, hunting and fishing, especially around like social media and whatnot, I just started getting exposed to this group called BHA that was all about protecting these public land spaces that I utilize so much and so many people do across the country, that I was like, let's see what they're all about. And I signed up for a work day up in the Chequamegon Nicolet National Forest, where we like camped for the weekend, and then we went and cleaned up hunter hiker trails. And I was just around this group of 15, 20 people that were on the exact same wavelength as me when it came to our interest in the outdoors. And I was like, oh shit, this is cool. And just all spiraled out of control from there on, and now here I am.
Yeah. Leading the charge.
Yeah. Try to, or at least enable the people within the organization to do the things that we want to see. And I think that's what's cool about BHA as well, is we don't have like a specific directive for this is what you have to do. It is kind of a choose your own adventure thing for our state chapters, that we can take on as many habitat projects as we want, as many learn to hunt events as we want to put on for new hunters, all because it's volunteer led, and the people that want to go do these things, all I do is give them the tools to go put on an event like that, and they go do it.
That's awesome. That is so That's great. Nice.
Yeah. We've kind of, we haven't done any of those like volunteer projects or anything like that, but I think that it's safe to say that if you can start if you happen to find yourself like you did in a scenario where you're looking to volunteer, you're surrounded by a lot of similar minded people, it makes it so much easier to just be enthusiastic about it, feel empowered, feel like you're giving back. And I feel like that's kind of an overarching kind of theme of what BHA is just like giving back and, helping people feel supported in what their passions are, AKA hunting and fishing, that, there's somebody out there that's actually helping protect, public waters, public lands, habitats, giving back and doing some of those things. And just knowing that there's something like that out there, I think is really, really a cool thing. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And the way, in your story, the way it goes, you go to Marquette, you weren't a hunter and a fisher, you get into a DNR program, you learn a little bit about this, you're cleaning up ice age trails, and now it's morphed into the snowball continues. Like you said, when you're in Wisconsin, you live and breathe it, and then you start to bleed it, and then you start going further and further. So, I look at it as a generic look. You did a couple things on your own. You learned from the DNR. You went and cleaned up some things and some trails. And next thing you know, look where you are and look what you're doing for the state, for everything involved. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I've tried to pass that on to call it future generations, not necessarily literally younger than me, but I'm thinking of a great example right now that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I put on my first time hosting Learn to Hunt events. And the first one was Learn to Hunt Pheasant. And I took about 12, 15 students out. We showed them all the different dogs that are involved in upland hunting, how they work, how they're different. We had them, and this is all on public land, by the way, like harvest some pheasants on public land. And the next day, one of the students texted me and he said, "Hey, I enjoyed that class so much. I went out on some public land by myself near where he lives without a dog, and he got 2 birds. He was able to bag 2 pheasants." And then fast forward another year, he texts me, I think it was opening day of pheasant season, and he goes, "I bought a dog. I trained the dog. We just harvested our first pheasant together on opening day on public land." And that already, I was like, oh my God, this is why I do these things.
Right.
But then fast forward another year, now he's on the board with me. Now he's managing our relationship and our sponsorship of the Goose Lake wildlife area, a little bit east of Madison. He's the one that's organizing the work days, the brush cutting, the invasive species removal, and the CWD disposal dumpsters that we put over there every fall. That guy is doing it, all because I took him pheasant hunting one day.
Because he came to one of the program days.
That's awesome.
That's so
awesome.
cool.
And that's I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg of what my man Ted does for us. But I think it's a good example.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to have you on, I think, because it seems like the last couple of years, there's just been so many different things that have been happening in our state, whether that's like the chaos that happened with the wolf hunt, the sneaky submission of a sandhill crane legislation most recently, and just a number of different things that continue to pop up that get so many people worked up, whether you are for it or against it. There's always so much commentary that comes out of that. And BHA is kind of not centered in all of the legislation, but they're actively involved and trying to put the best foot forward for what makes sense for, public lands and for the hunters and anglers in the state. Without actually diving into that, is the whole political aspect of everything, is that an enjoyable thing for you? Is it a stressful thing for you? And how much are you actually involved with a lot of that? Because I really don't know. I just know that it's something that I see a lot of articles and commentary, produced from BHA. But can you maybe give us a little peek behind the curtain of how that kind of impacts you guys?
Yeah. So inherently, we are a nonpartisan organization. We are not red, blue, left, right, up, down, whatever. We care about the issues, not about the politics surrounding those issues. So we're always going to take the position of defending, protecting our public lands, whether it's at a national level with the House Reconciliation Bill over the summer, or if it's locally in Wisconsin with Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program. We're focused on the issue of public lands and protecting these public lands. And the example that I'll give relating to Knowles-Nelson here is with the funding of this program being kind of up in the air, BHA, along with a number of other, honestly, every hook and bullet conservation organization in Wisconsin, we've formed a coalition to approach this topic and say, we want the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program to continue. We want this program to be funded. I don't care how we get there. I don't care if it's a Republican bill. I don't care if it's a Democrat bill. We want the end result. We'll leave the politics to the people in Madison.
Sure.
But we want that end result. And I think the Sandhill Crane's an interesting example of that too, because like the headlines that we've seen over the last couple of weeks are, there's a Sandhill Crane portion of the wake boating bill.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that did get slipped in there. My understanding of that, because I don't enjoy the politics of this, is that was like political horse trading amongst the people in the Capitol, right? But
right.
Later on that day, the Assembly passed a standalone bill for the introduction of a Sandhill Crane hunting season in Wisconsin. So Sandhill Crane alone has passed the Assembly.
See, and that's so interesting because I feel like that second half of that story isn't what gets talked about.
Correct.
It's the wake boating bill that they all agree on it. You know, somebody sneaks something in before they come back in their recess of 15 minutes that they sneak that in. That's the big uproar. Little do you know that later in the day, then they actually did pass it at a different level. So, God, that is so frustrating.
It's got to be hard for you because politics is, when you're looking for funding or we're looking for keeping a program afloat, you have to, it's not like we're raising, I mean, I'm sure you do, but a lot of money is federal money, state money. It's going to be political and it's got to just beat you up. And you're like, wait a minute, this is clear. It's very simple to me. Look at both sides. What don't you like? And it becomes a political battle over and over and over again. And it's just, it must be so hard for you because it browbeats you guys all the time. You're like, wait a minute. I don't care. Like you just said, I don't care if you're right or left. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. This is about what we believe in. The problem is when you're talking about funding has tentacles and the tentacles always go political and political always has two sides.
Yeah, 100%. And like for me personally, I hate all of that because like I don't have time for any of that. I got a job and like I want to do fun things and cool things. Like none of that stuff is interesting to me. I don't want to work in politics. I don't want to be an elected official ever. So I don't want anything to do with it. But we do have to get involved with these things as an organization to protect things we care about. And regardless of how nonpartisan we can display ourselves, people are always mad at you. If you don't say this side is bad, then the other side's angry, and vice versa. It's like politics is also one of those things that it's like nobody's ever applauding you for doing the right thing. They're just flaming you for not doing the wrong or for doing the wrong thing or not doing what they wanted you to do. So people are just very angry, especially on the internet.
No matter what, you're always going to be on both sides of that because no matter which way it goes, either one side's happy and the other side's not, or vice versa. It just, I don't envy that.
No, not at all. I mean, you can't, it's almost like you can't win. You're going to win 50%, but you're going to lose 50%. It's so tough. And you understand in waters and this and cranes and this person says no, this says no to wolf. There's always the two sides. And you're right. Nobody applauds anyone if they believe truly deep down, regardless of what side they're on, if they believe it's a good factor or a good implementation of a law, a bylaw of some sort, they won't admit it because it's almost like you can't concede to the other side. There's so much decisiveness that, like I said to you before, it's got to be so damn hard. Wait a minute. This is all we want. We just want to protect this. We want to protect this right or this area or this land or this animal or this species. and it's just continually battling when you're talking funding.
Yeah. And like the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program is just a perfect example of that we have this program to purchase and help fund land acquisitions that will be open to the public for hunting and fishing and recreation. Let
me just stop you there. Can you just give like an overview of everything that Knowles-Nelson does? Because I kind of generally understand it, but I don't know that I really understand everything that it does. And it doesn't have to be like every specific detail, but just maybe a high level of kind of what it is and how you guys are involved with assisting or backing it.
Yeah. So the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program started, I want to say in the 80s. That was a bipartisan led effort. Knowles and Nelson were two people working in Wisconsin politics. And it came together as a state fund or state program to help entities, whether it's county, city, nonprofit, conservancy organizations, purchase land, and the state would fund 50% of a land purchase. And that land, if funded by Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program, would be required to be open for hunting and fishing for public access unless deemed like a safety concern if it's like in the middle of a city, right?
Okay.
So this program was how we purchased land that was open to the public, whether it's, again, county, state, or like locally here, we've got Waukesha Land Conservancy.
Right.
A lot of that money has created a lot of additional access in the state of Wisconsin since its inception. But during the last budget cycle, our legislature decided to take it out of the state budget. So as it stands today, this program will not have any funding after June 30th of this year, June 30th, 2026. The program will have $0. So there will be no more money to help fund any land acquisitions for public access in Wisconsin.
And is it land acquisition only, or is it also supplemental funding for like maintenance or, like any of those other assets that obviously, I mean, taxes and all that stuff is a recurring thing, but there's always going to need to be work done or clearing trails, or is that all more a volunteer effort?
I think there is a component of like habitat and stewardship of the land, but the primary purpose of the Knowles-Nelson program was for land acquisition.
Specifically,
was the Knowles-Nelson, I saw somewhere, and again, like I told you earlier, tell me, I thought it was a 10-year program. Is it implemented in 10-year programs and coming up in June? That's the 10 years. Now it's banged. And the revenues generated is strictly through taxpayer dollars, or how is the revenue generated for Knowles-Nelson?
It was part of the state budget. And that, I guess, generally speaking, statewide taxes would fund the Knowles-Nelson program.
Was it 10 year? I'm sorry.
Yes. And that 10 years has run out as of 2026. The Assembly and the Senate would have to come to an agreement on how to fund the program moving forward after 2026. And that's where we've reached a stalemate, is that it was removed from like the general budget of the state. So it would require a standalone piece of legislation to establish that funding. And our legislature has not been able to pass anything to put even a single dollar towards Knowles-Nelson. So,
man, so not to throw anybody under the bus, but the removal had to come up. Was there a petition, or was there what who brought to the floor that Knowles-Nelson's expires in June of 26, and we are not going to continue to put that in the budget? Is this a concerted effort by both sides? One side, I'm not saying throw one side under the table, or was this just a, hey, you know what? We have so many issues in the state of Wisconsin right now. We're going to take a break from funding. We can reallocate those funds somewhere else. Or did someone particularly, or something, or some entity particularly bring this up? Because it sounds foolish. It really sounds foolish considering it's a 50% like acquisition. And I don't know. I just don't get why this program would even be in question. So
the initial removal of it from the state budget was not to dive down a rabbit hole, but very simply put, a reaction by the Republicans due to some concerns that they had over, call it, financial aspects of the program. One aspect was that, like, yeah, there's general purpose dollars from the state budget coming into Knowles-Nelson, but then there's also the debt and borrowing piece of, like, any state spending. They have to go and raise debt to be able to pay for things. And then the state's paying interest on that debt. So yeah, logically, the more land we're purchasing, the more money that's going to cost, the more interest expense there's going to be with that. So that was one of the concerns. Another concern is that when land is public land, it's taken off the tax rolls. So there's no property taxes coming to the state for that amount of land. Very much applicable up north, where you have a lot more percentage of your counties or districts that are comprised of public land. The tax dollars, if you remove 40, 100 acres, it starts changing the profile of the available funds for that area.
And then there's the land, or the people in that community burden the cost.
Correct. And then there's also a concern about oversight of acquisitions. So there was a committee of sorts that would approve any land acquisitions, and it had to be unanimous to approve this land acquisition through Knowles-Nelson. And that previously had like a anonymous voting thing. Like you could just anonymously veto the land acquisition. That was all ruled unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court. So the Republicans wanted to come through with some sort of oversight committee or mechanism so that we can, as a state, have the legislators giving input on what makes sense, what doesn't make sense for land acquisitions.
Okay.
I'm not taking a position on any of those points. That's just my simple brain understanding of kind of how all of this started from a political perspective. But then, hey, fast forward in time, we have two parties in our legislature. We need a majority to pass anything in the legislature, and through multiple iterations of compromises, amendments, opposing bills being introduced to the Assembly and the Senate, our politicians as a whole have not come to an agreement. So we're going to have $0 for Knowles-Nelson.
Of course, because nobody can agree on anything nowadays. So
yep.
No matter what. Yeah.
There have been proposals to compromise and have less funding going to Knowles-Nelson than we previously had. That was not passed. I have to look at it from the perspective of some money is better than zero money. And right now we're faced with the zero money situation.
Yeah. I think what is so frustrating is, kind of like people not really involved with this is when you hear the headlines on the news of, Wisconsin has this huge budget surplus just in general. We have a large budget surplus and nobody knows really what's going to happen. Maybe the governor wants to put it back into public schools, and this congressman from here wants to put it towards this, and this person wants to put it there. It just seems like a large scale fiscal irresponsibility that we have access to some of these different things, but they never get like appropriately positioned to be the most effective for the constituents. I guess that's all of my big words that I know.
Yeah, and you always hear
like it's kind of the like my perception is like, yeah, I kind of know what's going on in the world, and like I pay attention to the news and I pay attention to a lot of that stuff, but like I'm not smart enough to figure any of that stuff out. I just hear that and it's frustrating because it almost seems like there's so much that we could be doing, but because nobody agrees on it, nothing gets done.
Yeah. And you'll hear people say things like, well, we got to hold the Republicans accountable. We got to hold the Democrats accountable. How about we hold all of the politicians accountable?
Yeah.
I try to not look at anything from a left-right perspective. I look at it from a people versus politicians perspective. Because at the end of the day, they work for us as the people. They're meant to represent us. And by and large, the hunting and angling community has been screaming at the top of our lungs saying, this is something we want. This Knowles-Nelson program is something we want to see continue into the future. And our politicians across the board have not made it happen.
So one question I have for you, and you can tell me again, like I said, tell them I'm way off base, but I thought I heard a story about the acquisition of some property that was put into place, but they weren't allowing public hunting or fishing, or basically the land was acquired strictly to plant prairie grass and hiking trails. I guess I want to know, the funding, like you said earlier, was for public access. Public access can be defined in so many different ways for so many different people. But if you're accumulating lands that can't be hunted or fished, but it can only be walked through with trails and watch prairie grass grow, again, nothing against, and I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this in a derogatory room, but sometimes you want the money to be, I want to play with that land too. I don't want to walk around and watch butterflies and bluebirds. I mean, I want to do stuff. I want to go out pheasant hunting. But then I can see the other side, like we said, this side doesn't believe in guns or doesn't want it, but I want that land to be pristine, and I don't want a condo unit going up there or a gas station going there. I want to go walk there with my grandkids. I understand all that, but I heard that there was a piece of property, a large piece, probably in the central state of Wisconsin, that was purchased and was put off limits to all hunting and fishing. It was strictly basically a so-called park.
I'd be interested to learn more about that example. But the Knowles-Nelson program, if Knowles-Nelson funds were used for that purchase, it defaults to open access to hunting, fishing, and trapping must be provided. If it is in a situation that they determine, hunting whatever is not necessarily safe, like it's too close to houses or in the middle of a city, then they can make that determination that it won't be open access to hunting. But the vast majority of Knowles-Nelson properties are open to hunting and fishing. The default is open access, and they have to prove otherwise if hunting is not conducive on that property. Now, that's just the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program, so there is still the opportunity for basically anyone to purchase land, whether it's the state or county, nonprofits, etc. without using Knowles-Nelson funds. So I know, like, giving the example of like the Kettle Moraine State Forest in Waukesha County, there's acquisitions that the State Forest has done over the years that maintain a no hunting zone, even though it's still public, because it was like deeded into the purchase that this is going to be maintained as a non-hunting area to allow for things like Old World Wisconsin or a campground, those kind of things. But that's a fraction of the public lands that we have. I think we are in a very good spot that in Wisconsin, that publicly accessible land is probably 95% plus open to hunting, fishing, and trapping.
That's good to know, because I might have, maybe I'm thinking of a different program that was acquired, but then again, I remember hearing something about something was done. They okayed the purchase, knowing that the underlying circumstances weren't going to allow it. But again, it's probably a different program. As you say, it does open it up for hunting, fishing, and trapping. So it's a pretty clear-cut definition of Knowles-Nelson's funds, like you just said. So that would be a hard piece. Right. So I may be off track a little bit there too as well. But knowing what you just said, that definition is satisfies me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think we have that, and I don't have a problem with that, because I think when safety comes into play, or it is the Old World Wisconsin or whatever it might be, that, you know, you obviously got to be safe around that. I mean, it's no different than, you know, if you've got a piece of land, I mean, you're going to be smart about which direction you're firing or which direction. I mean, it's just taking into consideration some of those safety concerns. It's just,
you're always going to have somebody complaining about something. So it's kind of, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And Knowles-Nelson is also utilized for things like boat ramps. So if you have a small, very small parcel on a lake that is acquired to create public boat ramp access, it may be 1 acre of property, and they make the determination, yeah, you should not hunt there.
Right.
I can understand that. There's probably not a lot to hunt on the asphalt, the boat ramp anyway, but
I don't know, man. We see cranes all over the place on concrete around here.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, just while we're talking about appropriation of funds and some of that stuff. Pittman Robertson, is there a lot that you guys are involved with that, or I have this is such a classic example of me knowing one story, the details that I got from the one individual, and kind of like where some of the funding, or I would even say the misuse of funding, because it's not being spent like to what is available. I don't know, maybe this doesn't make sense, but and like how those funds are being used, or how they're available in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know how involved you guys are with that.
Do I need to give background on what Pittman Robertson is, or should I assume?
Maybe. Why don't you just, I think we generally understand it, or most people generally understand it, but I mean, it's just kind of what we read and what we hear. Yeah.
So Pittman Robertson is a federal nationwide excise tax placed on the manufacturers of firearms, ammunition, certain archery equipment, and mostly like the shooting or projectile aspects of hunting sports, right? And that excise tax is paid by the manufacturers. So like federal ammunition pays that excise tax to the federal government. You probably go look up on Federal's website, but I think they actually boast how much money they contribute to Pittman Robertson.
Okay.
That money federally is then allocated to the states proportionally based on hunting license sales. So very simply put, the more hunting license revenue that Wisconsin generates, the more money that we will see from Pittman-Robertson as a percentage of the national level. And
Sure.
we've seen like the Pittman-Robertson Fund historically go through a large increase because of like, probably starting in 2007, 2008, some of the Obama gun buying scares that everybody went out and bought guns and ammo, and then COVID, we were hoarding guns and ammo. There was a lot more money being generated by Pittman-Robertson, and that is basically matched to hunting license sales in Wisconsin. So where we would get involved from a funding perspective, at least within Wisconsin, is around the amount that we can generate via hunting license sales. We are a part of another coalition kind of talking about how do we think about pricing of hunting license sales, non-resident, resident pricing. Do we need to evaluate an increase based on some inflation? Do we want to, make non-residents bear some more costs?
Make them pay for it.
Hey, I've been all in favor of specifically Illinois residents paying more, but I pay what, $400 to $600 to go shoot a mule deer out west for one deer. And non-residents, I think they pay like $120 for their deer license here.
Yeah, I think the last increase was like up to $160 because there was still, it's because we did a story on that when the rate changed, and it's like hours compared to an $800 elk tag that you may or may not even be able to harvest. Like, it's pretty safe to say that if you do some work, you'll probably shoot a whitetail in Wisconsin if you're coming from out of state. I mean, we're fortunate to have the natural resources that it's very likely. Whereas like you go to Montana, you're like out in a canyon, you might not even see an elk after you spend all that money on a tag.
Well, that's a great point. So why is Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, why can't the people in Madison just look at that and say, you know what, if we're going to offset costs or we need to generate revenues, here's a great way to do it. Will it hinder the recreational people, the bars, the restaurants? I'm sure the tavern league, somebody may be upset about something, but if you would be just competitive with your reciprocity states, I mean, hell, we go down to Illinois and I got to buy this, and this. I'm going to say just ballpark it $500. And then they can come up right now and buy $100 to go turkey hunting and then pay the extra $15 when the new turkey tags go on sale, March 16th or whatever. $10 for a resident, but the non-residents can buy it for $15. It's like there's so many avenues strictly with licenses that you could generate monies. And the monies could be, and it's not like you're asking for something that nobody's ever heard of. I just don't know why Wisconsin's behind the 8 ball on that. And I know that's a off the rail type topic because you're talking about Pittman and stuff like that, but that's a good point when you bring up licenses and stuff like that. I don't understand why Wisconsin doesn't just get on board.
I don't have a good answer for like a very precise answer on why, but we're trying to navigate it as a NGO community through this coalition, but nobody wants to pay more for anything. I sure don't want my groceries to increase, and a lot of my groceries end up being from the woods. So I don't know where we're going to go as a state with that. Something's got to change at a macro level because there's a $16 million budget shortfall for this sportsman's account for the state of Wisconsin. That's been another headline over the last few months. So we need to we need to come up with that money as a state. The one thing I would say about this sportsman's account, which is funded by Pittman Robertson, it is mandated by law that this money has to be, don't quote me on the exact percentage, but somewhere around 95% of that money has to be spent to benefit hunters and anglers. The DNR actually just recently went through an audit of this sportsman's account, and the audit findings showed, there's a large percentage that this money is spent that primarily benefits hunters and anglers. There's another chunk of this money spent that benefits hunters, anglers, and everybody else. And it was only like 4 or 5% in that neighborhood that was purely administrative costs and does not show a direct benefit to hunters, anglers. So my read on that is our state's doing a pretty good job of utilizing this money that we fund as hunters and using it to benefit us. So I do have, confidence in that aspect, that I don't think we're misappropriating as a state the money generated by hunters and anglers. The rest of the state budget, don't get me started on that. But
yeah,
for our little portion,
I had heard like the one specific example about Pittman Robertson that I had heard or that I was aware of was a gun range and like a trap shooting facility with archery and a lot of that stuff. They had submitted for a grant from this program to like help them update their shooting bays and like a lot of those different things. I believe it was Pittman Robertson. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was. And they got approved for this thing where they could get state-of-the-art like shooting ledges and like just a lot of things to kind of bring their facility current with a lot of, just like standards nowadays. And when I was in there and I had the conversation with him, he's like, there's just money that's sitting out there that is not getting used and we're just sitting on it. So why not apply for it? Why not apply for the grant and be exposed to it? And they're kind of unique in the sense that they're like pulling from a regional area. So like they have a lot of people from Illinois that are coming. They have license plate readers on their long drive into their facilities. So they can actually go back to the state and federal governments and say, we know that exactly 22% of our population is coming from Illinois. 5% is coming from Iowa, 14% is coming from Minnesota, yada, 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 and back up. Hey, we're giving back on a regional level. This is why we think we should get this grant for $2 million or whatever it is, and be able to do this maintenance and improvement that we feel is long overdue. Is that essentially how those funds can be used aside from all of the maintenance and like upkeep and a lot of that other stuff? I mean, did I understand that correctly? Of like, that is how some of those funds are being used.
Yes. Public shooting ranges are, a legitimate expense and a legitimate funding within the Pittman Robertson Act. I'm not sure on what the percentages are, but I know that there's a difference in PR dollars, the matching rates from the PR account, if it's a shooting range or if it's like a wildlife or habitat type of management. So I don't think the public shooting ranges are as like high of a match rate as wildlife would be. So like this shooting range that you were just giving an example of, it would not be 100% that is funded by Pittman Robertson. That business would, one, have to provide public access to the shooting range, and two, pay for some of that themselves. So
Sure.
I mean, and that's kind of the broader topic of Pittman Robertson, is that it's not just hunters that are paying into that. It's your, competitive shooters for USPSA that never set foot in the woods, but they're buying guns and ammo. So I understand that. And I sure like having public shooting ranges available to me. So
yeah.
Well, I apologize. I was just looking this up. I just wanted to see what the DNR had come out with numbers. So there was close to about 790,000 licenses sold for the 2025 season. In 2024, the numbers haven't come out for 2025, but in 2024, 34 to 38,000 licenses were non-residents. So again, let's just say similar numbers. It's less than 10%, but still 34,000 to 38,000 plus tags at a higher non-res fee could generate, I believe you just said we have a $16 million deficit. I'm not saying we can raise 16 million on 34,000 hunters, but we can put a chunk into that 16 million. So I apologize while you guys were talking. I was just looking up that data. DNR has not released the data for 2026, though it said it was going to, or for 2025. Though it said it would have the numbers in January of 26, but I think they're still coming out. But wouldn't be a hard figure for them to find out. As we know, Antlerlist, Antlered, they have so many numbers in the breakdown. It's there. We just got to find it.
And there's a lot of different options that have been getting tossed around. Like, I'm not sure if you guys saw some of the headlines maybe a few months ago that people are talking about, like a foraging stamp that people would need to buy to go look for mushrooms on state lands. There's a ton of ideas like that to try to generate more revenue for the state. But the one thing that I think is intriguing is what I call the Missouri model, where Missouri actually has an additional sales tax statewide that funds their DNR, or whatever they call their version of the DNR, but it's statewide sales tax that funds conservation in their state. And it's been massively successful in Missouri, both from a public support and a dollars generated standpoint.
Yeah.
And we're floating around this idea in Wisconsin of, can we add a 1/8 of 1% to our sales tax to fund, generally speaking, conservation in the state.
Sure.
So could be interesting.
As you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, it doesn't even have to be, because we're not talking about like the stadium tax where it was like 0.05% or whatever. That was like that initial for upkeep of AmFam Field and all that. I didn't know what the percentage was going to be, but when you say 1/8 of 1% or whatever the number is, so minuscule, I knew that it wouldn't have to be much on a statewide level to be able to make up the dollars, or to be able to, accumulate dollars from a tax revenue that would help support all of these other things that, need to be funded.
Yeah. And then
I'd be fine with that.
I would too, but then you open up that Pandora's box. Now the next, I don't even know. Let's just, some other organization, some other group says they want 1/8 of a percent of, I understand where the state's coming from. You just can't add tax on. It's got to be passed, but I think it's something that should be looked at. I think if I didn't know about the Missouri tax, that's great. I even look back at the Iowa feeding families with Iowa venison. There's so many programs that are surrounded by us in the Midwest that I wish Wisconsin could be creative with. And again, going back to the non-residents, the feeding the hunger, these taxes for conservancy. There's so many ideas that should be implemented with so harmless. Let's just do it.
I agree. And that's where the politics come in, right?
Yeah, of course. Because if a Democrat puts it up, the Republicans will be like, well, we're not going to charge more taxes. And then if the Republicans do it, they're going to be like, well, we don't even hunt. So what's the difference? Like the majority of our base might not be outdoorsmen or women, you know, and it's like, oh my God, just get over yourselves, would you? It's just so bad.
And I try not to be defeatist about these things and just keep focusing on like all I can do as a regular dude at the end of the day is just keep raising my hand and saying, this is what I want to see. Please make it happen. And just keep saying that until I don't have any voice left.
Yeah. We're at about an hour now. I think that's what we're at. Yeah. Like 58 minutes. I do want to like jump into the whole sandhill crane thing.
Yes.
And I do want to talk about like the wolf kind of aspect as well, just before we run out of time. So sandhill cranes, it's funny. Wags just showed up at my place. I'm in Oconomowoc, and we were just talking about, he had looked up some numbers, how it was like, I don't know, the state is projecting there's like 54,000 cranes or something.
I think I got it off of yours. I believe it said 54,000 was estimated. Well,
unfortunately, we have 54,000 cranes in Oconomowoc, so there's got to be more than that. I don't know. Are you in Waukesha County, Alec?
Yeah. For now, okay. I'm in Brookfield right now, but I'm moving to Ozaukee County soon. I know. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's all right. It's fine. It doesn't matter either way. You know, you're still doing the good work.
High rent district. He's going up to like Cedarburg, Mequon, high
rent. So we have this crazy thing here in Oconomowoc where there was a mouse at the playground one day and it like shut down forever. And then all of a sudden at Fleet Farm out by us, which seems to be where they all sleep, you know, in the heyday of summer, there's got to be 150 cranes out there.
I think you're being generous. There's literally 500.
Yeah, it's insane.
It is. It's absolutely incredible.
And last year there was an issue where this crane was like pecking at someone's house, and the homeowner could not like deter it. The police or the sheriff or the game warden had to come out and shoot the bird. All hell broke loose in Oconomowoc because it's like, how can you shoot one of these things? Yada, yada, yada. And now the mate, because they mate for life, the mate is like coming back and now it's still there. And there's like all of these different layers to these problems that, not problems, but to these issues that come up that, you know, all of a sudden one thing leads to another with this. And it seems like the population continues to grow. And at some point, us as conservationists and as hunters and outdoorsmen, I think our default is always we have to manage the population. It looks like there's a crazy amount of birds. Why can't we hunt them? And then we hear about it from the Southerners, and they're like, ribeye of the sky. It's the best tasting bird out there. Yada, yada, yada. So you hear a lot of that different stuff. Can you... whatever input you have on the whole crane topic, can you just kind of give us a rundown of kind of what you're thinking or like where things are truly at, and like what are you hearing from whatever perspective, just on like a very general level?
Yeah. So this is a very simple topic in my mind. We all as hunters agree with and participate in the North American model of conservation, right? We believe in the scientific management of wildlife. We believe in the public participation in that management of wildlife. Yeah. That it's not the king managing the king's deer. They're our resources as the people, and we participate in the management. Sandhill crane in Wisconsin were sure once endangered. Now they're not. Now the biologists, the people that went to school and are smart with these things, are saying, both at the federal and at the state level, the population of sandhill cranes in Wisconsin is far surpassing the level that would be required to sustain a hunt. We have scientifically, there are more cranes than we need to be able to sustain a hunt. And then there's this crazy idea that non-hunters specifically don't understand, that you can hunt something and not wipe out the population. You can actually grow the population and hunt them. Like, oh yeah, they're fine with us hunting the elk herd in Wisconsin on a limited basis.
Yep.
But we're still growing the elk herd. What a crazy idea, right?
That was the exact scenario that I was thinking of. I mean, we have, what are we at? Like 150 elk in the state now, and we still have I get it, a very, very exclusive lottery of 4 tags or whatever it is every year. But we're figuring out a way to do that. And guess what? All of that money that is raised in the lottery for it and the tag sales and all of that stuff, I don't know this for sure, but it goes back to helping that herd. Just as the crane lottery or the crane tags would go back to supporting that species.
And there's like a lot of conjecture that comes into play from the anti-crane hunting side. You'll hear, well, what if these stupid redneck hunters misidentify a crane or a sandhill crane and they shoot a whooping crane? Well, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a whooping crane, or at least a picture. They look remarkably different.
Yeah.
They're white, not tannish brown. So don't think that's going to happen. They're also, to the best of my knowledge, has not been a single case in our flyway across the United States within our flyway of a hunter misidentifying a sandhill crane and shooting a whooping crane. There are people that have poached whooping cranes, sure, but it's not a misidentification. They were doing it intentionally.
It's an intentional. Yeah.
And on top of that, whooping cranes are a non-essential experimental population in Wisconsin. So they're like not on the endangered species list, so to speak. They're considered an experimental population, so there's different regulations with that. But anyway, I also think whooping cranes are really dumb. They're so dumb that people have to dress up in white Tyvek suits to like teach their young how to feed.
Stop.
You go look at a YouTube video. There are people that run around in Tyvek suits, and they've got like a crane head on their arm, and like that's how they teach baby cranes to be.
That's hilarious.
Baby cranes, because they're really bad parents. But this is not a slander campaign against whooping cranes.
It's good to know though.
But the like sandhill cranes, putting all like ag damage, I get it. I don't really care about that because I'm not a farmer.
Right.
This just is like a very simple thing in my mind. We have the population to do it. The science supports it. Let's do it. It's against our constitutional right to hunt and fish to not let us hunt them.
Yeah. Yeah. Wags has just got to take a bathroom break here, but that's fine. Which means that my dog's probably going to run down here. I will just say this. So we have this family that basically lives in our backyard. And I think it's so funny that my neighbor is probably the one that is on the board preaching no crane hunt, all of that stuff. And then I remember the first time that I met her, I was outside. We're like 2.5 years into living here, and we had no idea all of the wildlife that would be in our yard. And it was kind of dark. I was on our back patio because we have like kind of like a big outlet where like deer will walk through, cranes are there constantly. And this lady has basically made these cranes like her pets. Like it's really kind of incredible, the GPS that these birds have, that they fly south, they migrate, they come back, and they come back to her yard every year. I mean, and they're our yard too and all of that stuff. But when we first moved in out here and those suckers came in the first time, it was kind of later at night, I was grilling. And I made the comment out loud, not knowing that she was on her like patio as well, taking pictures of these cranes, about if they come over here, they're going to end up on the grill. And I look up and I was mortified. She was standing there and she for sure heard me say it. I'm like, oh my God, welcome to the neighborhood. This lady's going to hate me forever because I'm like talking about her pets that way. But it's just it's an interesting thing that like we look at wildlife differently than non-hunters do. It's just a simple way of looking at it, is that like that's a resource. Like I see a deer in the backyard and I joke around all the time that I'm like, oh my God, that would look so good on the grill right now. You know, just like it's a natural resource that we have access to, and it's hard not to think about it that way. But where was I going with this? I know what it was. So the other morning they have returned and these cranes are all over town now. And I'm not kidding. It was 6:15. I'm getting ready for work in the morning. And these freaking things are screeching out our back door at 6:15 in the morning.
You have four of them out there right now.
Oh, there's four of them out there
right now. There's four of them out there right now.
And I'm like, these things are so loud. I don't know. And then you get so many of them, they become a nuisance. I mean, they're for sure a nuisance in Oconomowoc because we've had stories about them. But that was like my random story about how annoying cranes can be. So let's get back to it. That is what my perception of it is that like the National Sandhill Crane Foundation, are they based out of Wisconsin?
Correct.
And are they the main
advocates to save the Sandhill crane? Like, is there money?
We're all advocates to save the Sandhill crane. The International Crane Foundation is just advocates to make sure we don't hunt them.
Okay.
Is their pockets very, very deep? Because that would seem to be on the surface, my opinion, that the people that, like you just said, don't want to, let's just say, curb the population, have very, very deep pockets, and then they can go up to our politicians and say, we don't want this.
I mean, they sure got more money than I do. Especially after I write this check for our down payment on a house. I don't know if it's like if it's a money thing, less than it's a like human nature. It's easier to get people pissed off about something and go protest about something than it is to get them to show up for something they're in favor of. Like we always see people protesting against something. When do you see crowds saying, we appreciate this, we like this, we want you to do this? Right. It's just like this like human nature that people get fired up and they don't even think about the details of what they're mad about. They're just like, oh, everybody else is mad, so I'm gonna be mad too. But those people, like the anti-hunters and specifically anti-crane hunting people, will probably not be too happy when they find out that in Wisconsin, every year, about 1,500 cranes are killed by the Fish and Wildlife Service. We are paying the government to kill 1,500 cranes every year. And by law, those cranes have to be left to rot where they're shot. They cannot be salvaged. You are not allowed to eat that. It is against federal law to utilize anything that was a depredation harvest by Fish and Wildlife Service.
That's crazy.
I did not know that. Is that why? That's probably why that crane was laying on 67 for so long after it finally got hit.
Yeah.
Over by Flea Farm. Do you remember that last year?
I've never.
That was
seen
a big
one.
story.
I've never
too,
seen
that
a crane
one
on the
got
side of
hit.
the road.
Yeah, I haven't either. Which is Sherry and I have talked about that, and I'm like, I don't know what it is, but first of all, it's a big bird, so you don't want to hit it.
Yeah.
But they're never in the road. Like they're never even close to the road. So it's
They're
just
smart.
It's an interesting
They're
thing
smart.
that
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because you start turning around the bend coming into our subdivision. If there's one, I mean, because of course they're crossing the street. They're just not doing it while people are there.
Yeah.
I don't have to be within 100 or 150 feet of them, and they're squawking and they're flapping their wings and they're like accelerating through the roadway. But
it would be a hard hunt. I believe.
Yeah.
I just do. People say, oh, there are cranes everywhere. You know what? There's turkeys everywhere. There's geese everywhere. I think the crane would be a hard hunt. I have never gone down to Texas. I don't know what it's like to hunt them. I don't know if they hunt them with like deeks or decoys, or they set up in the mornings or the afternoons. I don't know. Maybe you have hunted them. I never have. I think if around here, that would be a tough hunt. So to seem like we're going to decimate a population, I could be 100% wrong, but I think it would be a tough hunt.
I have not been crane hunting myself. I would very much like to, but I've heard they'll decoy once. And then when they get shot at once, they will never decoy again. Because they're smart.
So smart.
And I think the worst part about this entire debate is that there are multiple states in our flyway that have a sandhill crane hunting season. And one of those is Minnesota. And I refuse to let Minnesota have something that we don't.
Right.
I don't want to go to Minnesota to hunt cranes. Like, I don't want, I can't support Minnesota like that.
Yeah. Wow. I guess I didn't realize that. But yeah, and that's just it. I mean, you think about it, and I was going to say, there's all these states in the flyway that have it, and just because other states have it doesn't mean that we necessarily automatically get it, because, the number of sandhill cranes that fly through Missouri or that make it all the way down to, Texas or wherever, it's an accumulation from all those states and where they live and all that. But that's interesting to hear that about just like their intelligence, because it's like, I don't know. I mean, their GPS is so good. I was just saying while you were gone that, the ones that are here, those same birds come back to my neighbor's yard every single year.
It's crazy.
And just the ability to be able to do that. And I don't know. I hope we get it done.
Yeah. And I know we've taken up a lot of your time, but I do want to approach the topic of wolves. And I know I just want to get away from the sandhill cranes right now, because I know you're limited for time. But if you could just talk about the wolves situation, where that stands with the state, why the state allowed a one-season hunt, where was the upheaval, why did it get canceled after second season applications were filed. I am one of those people. The first year I did not receive a kill tag. I received a preference point. The second year comes out, I applied, I sent my $3 in, boom, season was canceled. It's not back. I'm hearing stories up north about agriculture problems, herd problems, cattle problems. Now I'm even hearing about pets problems. Where does the state stand on the wolf population, the predation, and how is that being maybe addressed, or have you not heard, or do you not get involved with that?
So as it stands today, this is a 100% federal thing. 0% Wisconsin, state of Wisconsin. we actually have legislation in place in Wisconsin that requires a wolf hunt to take place if the wolves are not on the federal endangered species list.
Gotcha.
So the last wolf hunt that we had that everybody got real mad about was a result of the Federal Fish and Wildlife Service delisted the gray wolf from the endangered species list, removed it from the endangered species list because the population goals were met. They were no longer endangered. That immediately triggered Wisconsin to have to put in a wolf hunt. And then the whole tag allocation versus harvest thing came into play. I'm not going to get into that as much. But again,
it was a fiasco.
But again, the idea that, hey, we harvested 200 something wolves and whoa, the population grew after that. Crazy. You can hunt things and have the population grow.
Right.
Anyway, it got litigated in federal court. The wolf delisting got litigated in federal court. So now it's back on the endangered species list. The Fish and Wildlife Service has said multiple times and always maintained that the gray wolf, at least in the upper Midwest, does not belong on the endangered species list. That is being held up in court through the, just perpetual litigation. So right now, Wisconsin cannot have management of gray wolves because it is federally listed.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
And that was the whole reason that, I don't know if it was just like in the last 2 months or last 4 months, whatever it was, the legislation was put through so that the framework of a season was there when the delisting inevitably or eventually happens. That's correct, right?
Yes, there's the wolf management plan that the DNR puts together, and it's how they would manage the wolf population should it be taken off the endangered species list. That's at the state level, but that's not activated until it's removed federally.
Right.
Realistically, the only way that that's going to happen now is through federal legislation. The normal process would be the biologists at the Fish and Wildlife Service say, this species no longer is endangered. Let's take it off the list. Okay. That's how it should work. Wolves seem to be a contentious issue, so people sue the government and it gets held up in court. But then you're like, well, Alec, why do Western states have wolf hunting? The Western population, or the Northern Rockies population of wolves, was removed from the endangered species list by legislation. So the House of Representatives and the U.S. Congress passed a law saying the Northern Rockies, take that off the endangered species list.
Wow.
There is now a bill to do the same thing for the Great Lakes population. That legislation is pretty damn permanent in the sense that you can't litigate legislation passed by Congress and the Senate. So that's why there haven't been reversals out west. That's the intent of this bill that was introduced to Congress for the Midwest population is let's mandate it taken off the endangered species list, and then it just goes back to the states for management.
Yeah. Okay. Which that makes sense. I mean, I think that the Rockies population is so much farther along than where we are. I mean, I think that we're just starting to get these wolves back in.
You think that? I see, me personally, I don't. I think that the numbers and the populations up in the northern part of Wisconsin and that UP area,
I think they're way bigger than what they
are.
Claim
much
they are.
much larger. And I believe if they really did a true analysis, the Great Lakes region would be very, very similar to that out west. I may be wrong. You can tell me if I'm way off on population numbers, but there is no reason why our region, that Great Lakes region, like you had mentioned, would not be considered if you actually had some real raw data.
Yeah. Yeah. He's pulling up his live tracker of all the wolves in the state.
So this is one of my favorite topics. So depending on how you look at it, like by the state, the western states like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming have about 2,100 wolves across that range. Okay. The western Great Lakes states, so Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan, per what is my source here? The Wolf Conservation Center, 4,400.
Holy crap!
And this is where I've always get tickled that.
Holy shit! That's way more than I thought.
Yes,
you've got these farmers and ranchers out west saying, we have way too many wolves, they're killing all the elk, whatever. Okay, great. The state of Idaho, I'll be generous and say that their population estimates maybe 1,200. Across the entire state of Idaho. Depending on who you ask in Wisconsin, there's anywhere from 900 to 3,000 wolves.
I think the number I keep hearing is like 1,200. Something like that. But
let's take 1,200.
Yeah.
Idaho's got 1,200. Wisconsin's got 1,200. The habitat that the wolves live in Wisconsin is considerably smaller than
it's all
the Idaho.
Northern third.
So we have a very dense wolf population.
Wow.
When you in the field and have that data to your fingertips, and you just said it really intrigues you, you look at these numbers in your mind, do you automatically double it? I mean, I believe numbers are altered. I believe there's no way you're going to tell me there's 12, there's 1,000. There's just no way. I believe that. I don't know. What's a pack? A pack has this. You're going to tell me how many cubs survived? There's just, so when you look at it, do you double the number in a realistic standpoint, or do you say, oh, okay, the numbers are probably pretty fair?
I don't know. I kind of, if I'm going to regurgitate a number, I'll put an asterisk on it saying like, per this estimate, there's X number of wolves. I'm not a biologist, man. I haven't taken science class since high school. So I'm dumb. But the way I look at this is, again, we can manage populations through hunting and not necessarily reduce them. I think we need to leave it up to biologists and the professionals to determine what is the carrying capacity of the habitat available. Let's manage to that. I think there's also research out there that has shown, I want to say in Montana, that after the introduction of wolf hunting and trapping in Montana, the population grew and conflicts with humans reduced. So there's indications that the pursuit of wolves, irrespective of harvest of wolves, the pursuit of wolves educates them and reduces potential conflicts with humans. So I see that as a pretty straightforward scientific benefit to a wolf population.
Win-win. Correct.
Yeah. So I got to give my faith over to, biologists and the research professionals here. But I think from if you were to take the name or the word wolf out of the equation and ask somebody like, do you think that this population should be managed by the state per the North American model of wildlife conservation? Yeah. And I think if you say anything other than that, you're introducing variables for this one species that may not, you're not applying to the other species.
Yeah.
Well, and we go, let's just use this fishing. I go in, I see them go out. They go out on the lake and they zap it. Well, we got 3 northerns up to this length. We got 2 muskies. We got 7 walleyes below the threshold slot limit. We got this and we got some perch. How do you I just always believe that numbers, any estimated number of a population of whether it's fish, deer, wolves, whatever it is low. I think it is unless you have, if we have, what'd you just say, 4,400, supposedly 4,400 gray wolves in the Great Lake region. Unless you have 4,400 collars, there is no way to tell. And I guess that those estimates, that's why I asked you what your gut feeling is. You being in the business and dealing with it all the time, does your gut tell you that these estimates, whether they're biological or biology guesstimates, or they're just adversaries of the wolf or hunters, whatever these numbers come out at, regardless of species, they're not correct. They're not correct. And it just frustrates me, especially with, those situations. You can't determine how many white-tailed deer are out in this agriculture southeastern farmland zone. You just can't. There's just no way. There's no way.
And there's bias being introduced on both sides. The anti-hunting crowd is probably going to be saying there's a lot fewer wolves than there actually are. But at the same time, the shoot, shovel, shut up crowd, which by the way is not a helpful perspective. Shoot, shovel, shut up does not help us as hunters. But that crowd is probably saying there's 3,000 wolves in Wisconsin and we need to kill them all. So yeah, somewhere in the middle, I don't really care what the number is, as long as we are giving our professional biologists in the state the right tools to manage our entire ecosystem effectively.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, the reality is that nothing's going to change until they're delisted or something actually comes of it. But I was happy to see that they were proactive about it. I don't know when that was, in October, November, December, whenever that actually came together. But it was nice just to see that they were proactive in putting together a plan to say, we screwed up last time. It was a mess. Fair enough. Moving forward, we don't want to put ourselves in that position again. We want to actually have a plan put together. This is our outline so that we can flip a switch and start activating some of these ideas or processes or whatever it might be with it come the day that they're delisted and that they're eligible to be hunted in the state of Wisconsin. That for me, I thought was a big win, just because it would have been a disaster again. I'm glad that they're kind of laying the groundwork and saying, hey, we know that this is going to be an issue. And, if it changes or when that changes, we're going to be ready this time. So it's good to at least see that, right? Because I don't know. I mean, Sandhill Cranes all of a sudden, and look, they've been working on that forever, but it gives me a little, like relief just to know that, hey, the next time, whenever that is, hopefully it rolls out better and Wags doesn't just pay another $3 to send to the government and not get anything in return.
With all the things that you have to deal with, it's just got to be mind-boggling. We come up with a couple ideas that we want to throw at you, and and you say you're a dumb guy, and I'm like, you know so much about it. It's interesting, and I know we've taken up so much of your time. I'd talk to you forever. I wanted to know about water issues, the waterways. I saw something that you guys had talked about, water restrictions, waterway. I didn't know if that was on waters running through public land. There's so many things topics that I like to know about, especially in the state of Wisconsin. And I could talk to you forever, but I think if you have to go, I mean, we understand it and we greatly appreciate it. But if you want to continue to elaborate on topics, we've given you a few that we've talked about. Knowles-Nelson, we took up a lot of your time. Is there something that you have seen, or knowing us a little bit through this conversation, that intrigues you, maybe closer to your heart, on something that maybe needs to be addressed sooner than later, rather than funding or the topics that we've talked about?
From the BHA perspective, so from the organization's perspective, I think we need to come together more and more as a hunting and angling community. I'm seeing that trend in the right direction. We've never had a coalition with Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, Wildlife Federation, like literally name any of these groups. We never had that until the last year. And now we are all working as these NGOs in tandem with each other. But I think that needs to expand to everybody that holds a hunting and fishing license, because we're such a small portion of the population. It's very easy for us to lose the things that we love and we care about, whether it's public lands or like the actual activities of hunting and fishing. We need to put aside our political differences, or, you're an upland only hunter. Like, I don't care. We need to come together and fight for the things we care about and show up to do that. We need to be vocal, and say the things that we want to see done, and hold our politicians accountable to that. That I think is very like woo woo and macro level, but it is something that I truly have seen. We had a lobby day in January this year where we went to the Capitol, and we had 75 people show up, which is awesome. We'd never done that before, but we went to the Capitol wearing camo, making ourselves seen and heard as the hunting and angling community. Next time we do that, I want 150 people. The time after that, I want 300 people. We need to show up. We can't just talk about it or write mean Facebook comments. We got to go do things, or the things that we love are going to pass us by and we're not going to be able to access them anymore.
Yeah. And it sucks. It's like the political climate and like the social media world, and just so many things just automatically get pigeonholed into, well, if you are a hunter, then you must just be, you said it a couple times, like a redneck hillbilly that shoots guns. Well, there's like so much more to it than that. I mean, there's the divide it feels like it continues to grow. So just a couple minutes ago, you said, I feel like we're getting closer to that. And I feel like we're like starting to bridge some of those like divides and actually come together. That feels really good to hear, just because, you're only as big as what your circle is, and you get to see what you see. And I mean, I've battled with enough people on social media just about like stupid, obnoxious comments that people make, and I just give it right back to them. But it's nice to know that kind of on like what you see from your level is that there is some of that coming together, and partnership or fellowship of believing in the same thing, and just knowing that we can't do it if the hunting community is split 50-50. and we only have 50% of that, that's actually, like working towards something, it doesn't work. It takes everybody, and hopefully we continue to move towards that. So, well, I don't know, Wags. What else you got?
No, I'm good.
Should we wrap it up here? Because I feel like waterways and a lot of that stuff
it's going to be too long.
Could be another conversation as we kind of get into summer and people start thinking about fishing and angling and stuff. I mean, Alec, if you're good with coming back on and joining us again, I think we could do a whole series on
I would love
just
it.
because there's so much.
I would love it. And I know your time, like I said before, I know it's valuable and you're doing other things. You got family, you're moving, you're buying a house, you got jobs. But I would love it if you could find time for us, in the next couple, 5-6 months, and we get back on again and just talk about topics that are prevalent right now or at that time in the state of Wisconsin and federally for that matter, because BHA is everywhere. But if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have you back on, and I'd be a little bit more prepared and have a little bit more questions for you so we wouldn't drag on so much.
There's always going to be something to talk about.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but there's always something going on that we can shoot the shit about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Alec, we'll kind of put a bow on it there. If you want to, the floor is yours, man. How can people find you? If you want to plug the BHA website and just some of that stuff and kind of what the outlet is for the Wisconsin BHA kind of handles and all that, just to find out information, figure out when the next pint night is and just some of that stuff, and kind of let people know where to go.
I think the Google machine is a great place to start. You can Google BHA or Backcountry Hunters and Anglers or Wisconsin BHA, any of the above. Backcountryhunters.org is our website. You can navigate to Wisconsin from there or any other state that you're interested in. But we're also on Instagram. I think it's at Wisconsin_BHA. But okay. That's where you can hear updates from us and give us feedback too. If there's something that you're interested on or need some help with, shoot us a message.
Yeah. I know you guys have been pretty engaged, and there's just a lot of different things and topics that you guys are able to kind of like repurpose national content, but also like dive into, some of that local stuff and just different things that are specifically impacting the state of Wisconsin. But you guys do a nice job of sharing some of that like high level national stuff too. So I don't know, Mr. Wagner, another one. This is our longest one, Alex. So like you set a record for our longest show that we've done, even though, I'm sure there's a couple that could have gone pretty long, but this was really good. I mean, I think a lot of general information and there's so much that gets put out there of, well, the Republicans are doing this, or, the Democrats are doing this. And it's so much of the left or right. So it was really nice to have a very, like, this is what's actually happening without a bias or without a perspective. And
yeah, thank you very much.
And we really appreciate that,
really
Alec.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So, all right. Well, we'll wrap it up there, and like, subscribe, find us wherever you can. Find all of the BHA stuff. I'll link all of that in the comments so that you guys can easily find that there as well. And until next time, for Mr. Wagner, Eric Tasker, this is Flipping Sticks and Throwing Lead.